All right. This is Monday at 9:17, and we're getting right into the week two breakdown. We have some pretty good teams kind of getting a peek, a look at the head right here, but we had some people that also didn't show up, mainly one person, and they're gonna have to look over their roster, unfortunately. But we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna start off with mine because this is the one that I opened. It just happened to be there. When you click your name, it takes you to directly to it. I went up against Jonathan, and Jonathan put up a fight for being a first year player. He is all in, which Jonathan, I am thrilled that you are having so much fun doing this. But I did take the win over Jonathan for about 33 points. I was Keenan Allen did the heavy lifting for me right here. Rashad White did some heavy lifting in the flex position. Overall, I felt like my team was very balanced and hit majority of their points, or at least what they should have need to. Jonathan, you had three boom players and all of the rest were busts. Unfortunately, we did talk about your bench and you did leave a couple bench points on your bench, which it happens, man. Don't worry about it. This is part of fantasy football. I kind of did the same as well, but your heavy lifting came with Jordan Love, who is looking like he is a really good player. I'm a little worried about that 151 passing yards. That's not great at all, but he clutched a big time with three passing touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, that's your heavy workload right there. And TJ Hawkinson, this is very good for a tight end. I mean, compared to Darren Waller, who barely broke his projection, 21, that is top notch. But you have a good team. Just they just didn't hit. Unfortunately, you left a little points on the bench. You go ahead and make those adjustments going into week two, and you'll be fine. The next matchup we're gonna get into Pirate Ship versus also squeaking out the victory by about 20 points. This is a very good win for Oso, and a hard loss for Juan, unfortunately. His wide receivers, Jamar Chase and Calvin really just did not show up at all. But you look at his bench, Puka. I mean, he is the number one waiver claim of last week. And it's funny, I talked to Juan about this. He played the matchups. You wanted Jamar Chase versus Baltimore. You wanted Calvin Ridley versus Kansas City. You did not want Puka Nakua versus the Rams secondary. And Nakua said, I don't give a fuck. I'm still going to ball. So left a lot of points on there. Even if you adjusted your roster, unfortunately, I don't think you were going to win this. Because Oso's team just kind of smashed. Heavy lifting, what I said from last week, Christian McCaffrey, Pat Fryermuth. Unfortunately, when it comes to tight ends, I mean, Juan hit with Hunter Henry with that touchdown. That's the second week in a row where Hunter Henry has had a touchdown with decent yards. Pat Fryermuth, I think I said this last week as well. This is less of a skill issue and more of a who's your quarterback issue. So I'm not a fan of Kenny Pickett that much at coming out of Pittsburgh, but kind of is what it is. Bijan had a great game. Oh, Brian Robinson, my fault, had a great game. Debo had a really solid game, and Josh Allen with the three touchdowns. That's a really good game. Looking at Juan's real fast, your wide receivers just didn't hit. Jalen Hurts had a really decent game with the two rushing, which he's always gonna rush with, especially with the quarterback push. I'm not a fan of it, but it is what it is. James Conner, very consistent. He's kind of like the only bright spot in the Arizona offense. I mean, it was just a rough week for Juan, unfortunately. You did break over your projections, 113 over 109. So that's a good thing at least, but also smashed his by about 20. So good matchup. Good matchup. Good win on Alex. We're gonna go over to the next matchup, and I told him, I said, Ryan, unfortunately, I am gonna have to say some good stuff about your team. Ryan had a very solid team going up against Orlando, who had decent highlight spots, but just kind of left some points on the bench, and even then, I don't think it would have kind of mattered for him, unfortunately. Ryan's highlighted over by Lamar Jackson. You expect these numbers from Lamar. That's great. Devonta Adams had a really good game. Michael Pittman, that's kind of like your weakest wide receiver, if I'm being kind of honest. But he essentially hit his projection or just under it, which you'll take. Kenneth Walker, that's a really good pick. Travis Kelsey, good things generally happen when Kelsey is on your team. He didn't hit his projection, but if you're going to get consistently 10 points out of your tight end, you're in a great spot. That is definitely worth a top pick. I don't 10 points consistently, not a number one overall in the first round, but very consistent. And this is the floor for Kelsey unless he's out. So good things are going to happen with this guy in that spot. Zach Moss, which was one of the biggest pickups for the week going into week 2, through all of fantasy, and he definitely showed out. There's a reason why he was, and it showed with 18 points. The kicker, I'm so happy. Jake Moody's doing great, and your defense, I mean, you're happy with that. We look in Orlando. Unfortunately, team just kind of just didn't really get too much. You were highlighted by Herbert. Good game by Herbert and Saquon. You do want to worry about the injury that Saquon hit. I haven't read too much about it, so you kind of want to look into that. Josh Jacobs, -2 rushing yards. Something is up with the Raiders offense, and it's not good. I honestly don't know what it is. Dallas Goedert, it kind of is what it is. DeAndre Hopkins, I like Hopkins, but I don't like the quarterback. I'm blanking on his name. Ryan Tannehill. Not a fan of him. And unfortunately, Denver's defense against Washington, you thought that would be a great matchup. I would have probably said the same thing, and Washington just kind of smacked them. So it's not good. You kind of missed right there with Cleveland, but you can't really predict defenses, unfortunately. But it is what it is. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Tony up against Robert, and Robert putting the win up on Tony over by about 20 points, which is kind of surprising, especially with his quarterback only putting up 9 points. That's not great, but I think it was a matchup issue. Kansas City's got a great defense. Overall, Robert's team is very solid. Matched, broke, essentially matched, but broke. 13 out of your tight end is great. Like I said, if you're going to get 10 plus consistently, you're thrilled on that. And he hit with his bench, with his flex spot too. 17. He actually left some points on the board right there with Mike Evans. Looking at it, I mean, shit, I probably would have did the same thing, but Mike Evans is looking to be very consistent this year with 171 receiving yards. And you actually left a lot of points on your bench with Geno Smith. Geno Smith, believe it or not, one of the top quarterbacks in the league right now with scoring. Wow. If I'm not gonna lie, I probably would have put Geno over Trevor Lawrence. Looking at your team right now, with the matchup, KC's got a really good defense. Let's go over to Tony. Tony, you had a decent team, but you just kind of had a couple misses, and you left a lot of points on the bench as well. Gabe Davis, he's a very boomer bust player. He's one of my favorite players, but he's a home run hitter, and in that instance, that was a home run. Drake London, I kind of didn't expect that either, but that was a home run essentially. Even the kicker kind of just broke it. Why do you have 2 kickers? Fix that. I don't like it. The fuck. But Tony, this is not good. If you haven't heard the news, I'll tell you right now, Nick Chubb out for the season. Multiple ligaments torn in his knee. So you're going to need to figure out something with your running backs, whether it's Dalvin Cook, who put up -3 points. Definitely not that, or Joshua Kelly, which is going to be interesting with, Austin Eckler kind of battling injury. I kind of would have expected more points out of him on there, but, it kind of just not a lot of things hit for you, unfortunately. T. Higgins, that's clutch. You hit on that one, so good job. But fix your running back and get rid of your kicker. What the fuck's going on? Last matchup, and this is kind of the one person who just did not hit and went up against a heavy hitter. We got Travis absolutely demolishing Roman. It just did not work for Roman, unfortunately, man. I don't want to bag on you too much. But Joe Burrow, something's going on with Joe Burrow, and I'm not a fan of what's going on with him right now. he's battling an injury, and it's kind of interesting. Justin Jefferson, you expect this, and Jalen Waddle with their high offense, you expect them to at least hit their projections, which he essentially did. So that's not an issue. I think you forgot that Aaron Jones was out, or he was a late scratch. So that's not a good sign. You left some points on the board on there. Um, Everything else, Brandon Ayuk just had a really bad game. He was fighting injury from essentially the first catch that he had. You left 40 points on the bench with Kirk Cousins. This is kind of interesting. Kirk Cousins has some of the best games when they're down, and they were down very quickly. So he had to throw, and he kind of showed out with 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. You left some points on the bench with David Montgomery, George Pickens, and your flex. I think if you put those guys in, you maybe would have had a chance. But honestly, Travis's team is a heavy hitter right now, and it's leading by Patrick Mahomes and Devonta Smith. I mean, this is very interesting. You would have told me Devonta Smith is going to be the top wide receiver out of Philly compared to AJ or whoever the other guy is. And I would have told you, no, it's the other guy. But Devontae, this is the second week in a row where Devontae Smith has exploded. So this is a very clutch pick. Derrick Henry, Mike Williams. Mike Williams going to be the PPR kind of guy with 8 receptions. Derrick Henry, he's a workhorse. Not as much rushing yards as I expect. So actually, this is kind of scary to say, but Travis's team can actually be a lot better with Derrick Henry not performing up to a standard. Miles Sanders, kind of is what it is, you know. Evan Ingram, tight end. If you get 8 points, I mean, you're happy with 8 points, honestly, compared to the 2 out of Kyle Pitts. You're happy with that. You left some points on the board with Jahan Dotson coming in your flex. I think maybe you didn't really play the matchup too well because Denver actually has a pretty decent defense, especially in their secondary. So I mean, Marquise Brown. Kind of going back to what I was saying about James Conner, one of the very few highlights of that offense, and Marquise Brown is the secondary option in that offense. But I mean, you smacked New York's defense against Dallas. I probably would have quickly switched that out if I was Roman, unfortunately. And ironically, they were playing their defenses going back and forth. So obviously, if one defense did great against the other one, or in this case, Dallas kind of smacked up on the Jets, it was going to reflect in the matchup. So kind of just missed opportunity right there to kind of save some points, to salvage some. Nowhere near their original projection, unfortunately. But that was it's a good week. It's a good week for everybody. Everyone really hit their matchup points, except for a couple people. Even the people that lost, they hit their projections. So it's going to be a very interesting week. And let's go ahead and jump over to week 3. I don't have the standings yet saved because it just happened. So I think honestly, it's going to get jumped over tomorrow for the standings. Yeah, everything still shows 1-1. So current standings, yeah, no, I can't even get into it. But let's kind of look into the matchups going into next week real fast. I'm actually going up against Roman, so it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to go over the matchups, just seeing who's going to go up against who. Juan is going up against, that's Robert. So very decent teams going up against each other. We got Ryan going up against Jonathan. Jonathan makes some adjustments, and I think you have a chance against Ryan. Honestly, I think you do. You just need the right things to fall into place. We got Tony going up against Orlando. Low scoring matchups, but I think these guys need to adjust their lineups, and you can kind of get these averages closer to 100 unless you guys got some bye weeks or injuries that you need to kind of get fixed. And this is actually going to be a heavy hitter right here. Right here. This is going to be a very good matchup, and I was looking at this earlier, and I'm excited to see the outcome of this. Oso versus Travis, and these are top teams. Don't be fooled by Oso's 5th place current standing. He's probably going to jump up to maybe 4th or 3rd depending on the standings of how they went for the scoring. He had a great week, and especially with some losses at the top. And Travis has a really solid team, so I am excited about those matchups. But there you go, second week in the book. Couldn't really knock anybody too hard. There were some good matchups. Team showed out. The definitely better offense that it was compared to last week. And you definitely reflected in the scores. So I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's gonna, hopefully I can get another one in next week, and we'll see you then. But work the waiver wire, get your guys pickups, and we'll go on to the next matchups. Have a good one.